to talk to you about an awesome cooking ingredient, breadcrumbs. Great for binding meatballs, trying my faux fried recipes. The possibilities are endless. But did you know that most store-bought breadcrumbs contain high fructose corn syrup? That's because a lot of store-bought bread contains high fructose corn syrup. I say, let's make our own breadcrumbs using the bread we choose. How do we choose? Come with me.
Hey guys, we're at my favorite market in New York City, so let's go inside and check out the bread. Okay, so we're in the breadcrumb section, and you really only need one ingredient to make breadcrumbs, and that's bread. But if you start with an unhealthy ingredient, you're going to end up with an unhealthy ingredient. So we want to make sure that we start with the healthiest bread we can. Most store-bought breadcrumbs have high fructose corn syrup in them. It's not necessary because you don't need high fructose corn syrup in bread, but here it is, right there. It's like the third ingredient, and all of these variations have them. And if you don't know, manufacturers are required by law to list the ingredients in order of how prevalent the ingredient is by weight. So if it's the third ingredient to the top, it's a pretty prominent ingredient in the breadcrumbs. So we want to make our own cleaner breadcrumbs by starting with a healthy bread. So how do we choose the bread we want to use? Okay, so before it's processed, a wheat kernel is a whole grain made up of 3 parts: the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. Now, in white bread, the bran and the germ, which are pretty much the healthiest part of the kernel, are removed, and the endosperm is ground up really fine into your refined white flour. In whole wheat bread, you keep all 3 parts of the kernel: the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. The entire kernel is ground up to make whole wheat flour, which preserves all of the nutrition, the fiber, the micronutrients, and the protein. So how do you know which bread to choose? You've got tons of bread choices, tons of health claims. This one's health nut, this one's got 12 grains. Oh my God, it must be the healthiest bread because it has so many grains. Every bread wants you to think it is the healthiest. So the best way to decide which bread is best is to actually ignore the front and just look at the nutrition label. So to make sure that you're actually getting 100% whole wheat flour, you first look at the package. You've got 100% whole wheat. The important thing is that in the ingredients, it says whole wheat flour as the first and only type of flour. So it's the only type of flour and it's the first ingredient. This is 100% whole wheat bread. So now, there are other breads, like we talked about this 12 grain, it makes a health claim, but when you look at the ingredients and you see the first ingredient is unbleached enriched wheat flour. So that is just another name for white flour. And also in the description, put some other words, multi-grain, anything that says enriched or bleached. Unbleached is just an excuse, a sneaky way to say white flour. And the same goes for this health nut. It says whole grains in their health nut, so you think it's really healthy. And the first ingredient actually is whole wheat flour, but it's followed up with unbleached enriched. So that means it also uses white flour. So it has some whole grains, but not all. And then here's one example. This is a really sneaky example. It says 100% whole wheat on the package, and then when you look at the ingredients, it says whole wheat flour. So that is the only ingredient that is flour, but the second ingredient, water, the third ingredient, high fructose corn syrup. So it's definitely important to read the label so you know what you're getting, because this and this, very different. So the only things that you need to make bread are flour, water, yeast, salt, and a little bit of sugar to activate the yeast. So why is it that most of these breads have nutrition labels where the ingredients are a mile long? So most of these, very few of them are actually used for the bread making process. The rest are there to make it taste better, to preserve it, to give it the color. You'll see molasses in there a lot of times to give it color. So it's important to keep in mind that just because it is brown and it says whole wheat on the package doesn't mean that it's the healthiest choice. Now that's a relative term. This is making a health claim that it is healthier because it is lower carb. But think about it, wheat Wheat contains carbs. It is a carbohydrate. So how do you get lower carb bread? You put a bunch of chemicals in it. So it's up to you. Do you want to digest something that is lower carb, but you don't know what those chemicals or ingredients are? Or do you want to make a healthier choice and understand that those carbs are good for you and are going to give you energy? So another thing to keep in mind is that even though you want that ingredients list to be shorter, less isn't always more. So here I've got a really healthy choice of bread. I've bought this bread before, and it contains a lot of added ingredients like rolled oats and quinoa flour. Some have buckwheat flour, or cottonseed, or processed oat. Those are all things that are going to make it more nutritious. But I look at the ingredients label and I can understand, I know what all those ingredients are. So this is one of the breads I'm going to use for my breadcrumbs. So 45 calorie bread. It is the new sort of fad for low carb lovers. Bread is a carbohydrate, so naturally it's going to have carbs. So the only way that they can make it have less carbs, well, there's two ways. One of them is by putting some chemicals in there. So whenever you look at these breads, you see that the nutrition labels are usually a mile long, and most of the ones I've seen have high fructose corn syrup in there somewhere and a lot of other stuff that I don't know what it is. So this one's soft wheat. It makes you think it's wheat, but it's got some unbleached, enriched flours in there. This one has extra fiber in it, which makes it healthy, right? But look, it's got 6 grams of fiber in 3 slices. So if you're only eating 2, you're really only getting 4 grams of fiber. So that's kind of a cheating you there. And again, also not whole wheat. Here, this one, I think this one does not use high fructose corn syrup. Yep, usually the Arnold brand doesn't, but it does use sucralose. All of these use sucralose, which is just Splenda. So if you're trying to avoid Splenda, or if you're someone who's afraid of that chemical or prefers to not include it in their diet, don't think you're getting away from it by using these low-calorie breads. Another thing to keep in mind, when you look at these, the grams per slice, you've got 2 slices is 42 grams. So that's the weight of the bread. When you look at a normal slice of whole grain, true whole wheat bread, 1 slice is 43 grams. So pretty much you're getting 2 slices of this for 1 slice of this. And some of you are thinking, well, that's great because I can eat a whole sandwich for half of the grams and the carbs and the calories, which is true, but you're doing it at the expense of the chemicals and the ingredients that you don't know. And really, is it worth it when I could, if I really just wanted to eat 43 grams, eat 1 slice of the more nutritious bread? So does that mean that there is no place in a healthy diet for this lower calorie bread? No, it could fit into your lifestyle, sure. If you're on a weight loss journey and you're struggling to get enough food, if you feel like you're really hungry all the time because you're at an extreme calorie deficit, maybe the 40-45 calorie bread is good for you. But if you're trying to gain muscle or just eat the cleanest diet possible, then you're probably better going with some kind of true whole grain goodness bread, or something that offers even more nutrition. Even though it is a little bit higher calorie and carb, you know it's coming from a good place, a healthy place. Okay, so it's up to you to read the nutrition label, decide what kind of ingredients you want your bread, how many you want there to be, but if you have no idea where to start, there are some guidelines people follow. One of those is having under 100 calories a slice, and the other is having at least 2 grams of fiber. Now, I agree and disagree with those things. I think bread is nutrient dense. At least if you're buying the healthy kind, it should have more than 2 grams of fiber. I'd say 4 to 5. I think mine has 5 grams of fiber. 5, yeah. And even some of these more common brands, this one, whole grain, this is 100% whole wheat, has 4 grams of fiber. So really aim for higher than 2 to 3 grams per slice. And as far as the calories go, yeah, if you can get 100 calories or less per slice, that's great. But I've seen plenty of varieties that are 110, 120 calories, and they're nutrient dense and they have great ingredients. And if you find a bread that is 110, 120 calories and you love those ingredients, then eat that bread. For my breadcrumbs, I am going with my ultimate whole grain goodness whole wheat bread. It's wheat and flax fiber by the baker. If you can find it, you should try it. It's just as good as any other whole wheat bread, but more nutritious. And for the taste, I'm also going to go with a dark pumpernickel. Now there is some enriched flour in this, but you know what? I'm okay with that because I like the way it tastes. I think it adds an extra element to my breadcrumbs. So your breadcrumbs, you can use all this, you can use all this, you can use none of it. It's up to you, but make sure you choose something that works for your lifestyle. So one kind of fun thing to do is if you're trying to decide if your bread is a healthier one or not, you know, this is a little more abstract, but if you take a loaf of bread and you kind of just lightly squeeze it, you don't want to squeeze it so hard that you kill the bread and that no one can ever buy it again, but just lightly squeeze it and feel it compress and kind of push back, and it's really fluffy and it makes you want to eat it because it's so nice and fluffy. It's probably not very healthy, and that's because manufacturers put all that stuff in there to make it fluffy and nice, and it's really hard for them to keep the nutrition when they do that. So when you pick up a denser bread and you feel it and it's not so fluffy, it's probably the healthier bread. So I know it's a bummer, I'm a white bread lover, but when it comes to your everyday sandwich making, I recommend going the nutritious route so that when you do go out to eat, you can enjoy the bread basket or get the white pasta, make the healthy choices at home. The last bread I want to talk about is Ezekiel bread or any sprouted whole grain bread. So it's pretty much just when the seed sprouts, they grind it up and make it into a bread, and that process retains almost all of the nutrients. Sprouted grains are one of the healthiest things you can eat. They're pretty much like a vegetable, and here it's put into bread form. Now it is really dense, but there are a lot of benefits to this bread if you want to try it out. It's got almost no sugar. It's made with a bunch of different whole grains and legumes. It's not gluten-free, but it has very little gluten, and it's got a lot less fat and a lot more protein than other breads. But it is in the refrigerated section, so make sure you don't look in your normal bread aisle.
For your homemade breadcrumbs, start by cutting your slices of bread into quarter pieces. This helps them crisp up evenly. Place on a baking sheet. Feel free to cut a few into some smaller cubes for croutons. Bake in an oven preheated to 300 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes. Remove from the oven, flip each slice, and return to the oven for another 10 minutes until browned and crisped. You know it's done when you are able to snap the pieces in half with a nice crunch. Place them in a food processor and blend until ground. If you like chunky breadcrumbs, blend for a little less time, and more time if you want finer crumbs. Store in the freezer. You do not need to thaw before using. And there you have it, homemade breadcrumbs made with no high fructose corn syrup, with healthy bread that you choose for your delicious recipes. For this and all my other great recipes, be sure to check out mindovermunch.com. Don't forget to subscribe, and please share this video if you enjoy it. That helps spread the word more than anything. And remember, it's all a matter of mind over munch. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode of Mind Over Munch.
Okay, so, sorry, now I'm like feeling worked up.
Breadcrumbs. 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 I can't.
No, oh yeah, we're.
This week I'm going to talk to you about about breadcrumbs.
We have to explain that, I think.
Raisin bread.
Trying my faux fried recipes. The possibilities are, you're laughing at me.